Hey everybody, it's Zach Miller from the Schmidt Music Saxophone Shop. Today I'm joined with Clay Pufall and Joe Mayo, and we're going to be doing a little deep dive on the new Selmer Supreme tenor saxophone, doing some comparisons to the saxophones that we play on and kind of giving our general thoughts.
So I'm Clay. I've been in Minneapolis-St. Paul area for the past 20 years or so, and I'm a player and educator in the area and do a variety of different things in the area, playing wise and teaching. Excited to be here today.
I'm Joe. I'm from the East Coast. I moved here almost 11 years ago, and I play in a lot of different groups around town, anywhere from small group jazz things to wedding bands and lots of big bands too. Yeah, happy to be here as well.
Yeah, and Clay and Joe serve on our Saxophone Shop advisory board, so we kind of rely on people like Joe and Clay to help us kind of pick out new equipment and help us see what's new and exciting out there in the world of saxophones. So we always appreciate their advice because there's a lot of great players around the cities, and it's nice to have a couple that are willing to come sit down and talk with us. So I guess we can just kind of hop right into talking about the Selmer Supreme and kind of the comparison to the saxophones that you two probably have been playing on your saxophones for a long time. I mean, it's interesting when new saxophones launch. Little over a year, you said? Oh, because yours is actually relatively new to you. But it's interesting when I'm talking to people about new saxophones, especially professionals that have been playing on their saxophones for a long time or have been playing on something vintage for a long time. It's kind of a little inevitable that we're going to enjoy playing our saxophones the most compared to any other saxophones out there, because we just get so used to what we're playing on, and it kind of becomes like a core identity of how we sound. So the thought of switching to any other new saxophone is like, for a lot of people, like a daunting project, and it's hard to think about switching to something new. So maybe you can kind of talk about like your experience with your saxophone and what do you like about it, and also like what do you not like about your saxophone? What do you wish your saxophone could do better?
Sure. So I can give you a little backstory with my saxophone. I have a Mark VI tenor that is a later series one, so it's not a 5-digit. It's 1970, I think 71, and I've had it for almost 30 years, 28 years, I think, at this point. And it was a school horn that was rescued by a Schmidt Music store, actually in Wisconsin. And it's been reliable, but it's always had issues with the neck. So I've gone through several different necks to kind of find something that worked acoustically a little bit better on it. And what I'm currently playing on is another Selmer neck. It's an older neck. And it's pretty good, but I still find issues with it. And comparing to some of the new horns that have come out, when the reference 36 and 54 came out, I liked
Which was like
20 years
20 years ago,
yeah.
2001.
Yeah.
It's been over 20 years since they released the new saxophone.
I really liked the reference 36. I played the reference 54, tried it out occasionally that I liked as well. And I guess the things that I'm looking for in a new horn, some of the other new horns that I've tried have always felt a little bit heavier for me than my horn, so I'm looking for something that physically feels kind of similar. And acoustically, I think what I'm looking for that I don't get out of my horn is something that has a little bit more presence and cuts through in loud situations. I find sometimes I have issues with this where it just doesn't seem to kind of cut through, particularly in a more amplified situation. It seems like the frequencies collide with mine, and it doesn't quite have enough presence for me. So, but anxious to try it. I know. I do agree. Whenever I've tried a new horn, it is always hard to compare it to the thing you've been playing on for so many years. And sometimes I'm not able to see the benefits of the new horn. I'm just looking at the familiarity. But I think sometimes if you're a little more objective about it, you can find a lot of things that actually are much better. So I'm anxious to try it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was talking to one of the younger players around town. We were just sitting down, and he was trying some new horns. He's like, I really like it, but like my A and my F sharp on my Mark 6 just sound so good, and I find that on every new saxophone, it's just like a little bit more plain. Do you have notes on your saxophone that you like have become a core identity in like how you sound?
I don't find that probably would be the case for me. I think it's more of a just overall feeling. It's broken in, for better or for worse. Feel comfortable. It feels like a worn-in pair of sneakers.
Yeah.
I think so. It's probably more the feeling of it, the way it takes the air. But then again, it has a lot of mechanical issues too, which you'll hear, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The clacking, but no, I don't. I don't know if I necessarily have that situation where I have particular notes necessarily about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really feel that way. I mean, one thing I like about the Mark 6s in general is that they have somewhat of a built-in resistance that I think if you get accustomed to it, you get up into the upper register, you can kind of lean on those palm keys and they have a certain sound. They're maybe a little less open, a little more nasal than some modern horns like the Tenor Madness horn, which to me has like a fatter bottom to it. But it just depends what you're going for. I mean, I feel like the Selmers sort of have like a tighter low end sound. Those have more of a big booming sound, a more con-like kind of idea. And I've owned some cons, and I found that when I'm playing in big bands, particularly, I can't hear myself as well for some reason. It's like the sound spreads out, and it might be technically a bigger sound, but there's something I just can't quite grasp as much, which is why I think I always kind of end up going back to the Mark 6, which has this kind of built-in core to it seems like.
Yeah.
And then the feel of the 6, I think there's a reason that so many people have tried to emulate it over the years and get as close to it as possible, but it just, like Clay said, they're older, so they've been broken in, probably played quite a few hours, and ergonomically they just feel really good.
Well, maybe before we really dive into it, I think for all of us it'd be good to get a better idea of just how your instrument plays in comparison to the new one. So I don't know if any of you want to go first and pick up your instrument and like play on yours a little bit, and then I'd love to get you just like play the same thing on your saxophone. And then if you need a minute to get warmed up on this one, get warmed up and then play the same thing on this saxophone.
Sure.
Yeah? You want to go first?
Well, I think our host should go first.
Oh God, that's fine. I mean, I can edit it so that you go first anyways. Yeah. Actually, I haven't spent a whole lot, I've played it a lot, but I haven't really sat down and compared my saxophone to this one. And
And so is this, tell us about
well, this is a Tenor Madness horn.
Tenor
I bought this new in 2015 or 2016.
Okay.
I didn't try out any other horns around. I got the job playing at Valley Fair, and then I went to the sax shop, and Dave was still working at the saxophone shop, and I just said, I need the best horn, in your opinion, and he handed me this one, and it's all I played.
And this is the original Tenor Madness neck, or is it?
Yeah. So I don't even know what I would play. I didn't think about what I would play today, but. Yeah, I really just have loved. I play a lot of rock and roll, so I need a horn that just sounds big, keeps up with the horn section, and can also kind of cut through the guitar if I really need to. Yeah.
And I've heard a lot. I mean, I've seen a lot of information kind of about the Supreme, and people. Mostly, it's just been in reference to comparing it to a Mark 6.
Yeah.
So is that kind of your impression so far of this horn, that it has a similar Mark 6-esque?
I think they did so much different in compared to really any other saxophone that they've made up to this point. That's really hard to compare it to vintage horns because I don't think their idea was to recreate the Mark VI. That was kind of what the reference series was
Right.
more recreating like the SBAs.
So what was sort of their write-up? How did they? I actually haven't read that. What did
Yeah,
someone
so
say about the Mark
their whole idea was to create just a better working instrument. Something that was easier to play, it was more in tune, and they did a lot of interesting things, especially with like the board taper on the neck stays like perfectly cylindrical for like quite a while on the neck. I know that they added like more material. This is literally like the bell goes out longer than standard saxophones, and that's to kind of balance out some of the projection and the intonation on the lower notes. I know they made the opening on the tone holes a bit bigger, but they made the action a bit lower to kind of balance that out.
On all
so
the
it's-
holes or the palm keys?
On all of them.
All of them.
So the goal was like the action is a little bit lower. It should feel easier to like fly around the instrument, but with the tone holes being a little bit bigger, you should still be able to get that same, projection and cut that you do, on any other Selmer instrument. So they really did quite a lot different, and it's hard to really compare this to another instrument because it's really in its own class. And there's no one doing dimensions on the neck like Selmer is right now, and that is where I think it's really like cutting edge in that regards. Yeah, maybe I'll pick it up and show you what I sound like on it.
That's interesting. So a lot of the comparisons are perhaps coming from, not right from someone, from everyone else who's
I think-
just wanting it to be.
Yeah, and some of the artists that they've been getting to play this, the artists have previously been playing on Mark VIs, so like, they switched off their Mark VI to this new instrument that's even better than the Mark VI. It's like, I think it's good in a lot of different ways, and they don't really accomplish the same things. I'll play the same thing on the other horn again.
Yeah.
Maybe just to get it back.
They're different.
Get it back in your ear. Oh my lord. I mean, what do you guys hear as the difference?
Well, yours seems to me it's like drier and smokier. It's like it seems darker to me.
Yeah.
Everyone hears darkness and brightness different. I've heard people disagree. Maybe Clay will disagree. To me, it was kind of like dry and dark. Definitely more comfortable on it. But that's great as well. I mean, to me that was sweeter sounding. The Supreme is sweeter and a little brighter. Maybe a little cleaner sounding.
I think maybe a little more even with the
Mhm.
ranges.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
very,
Yeah, and that's
not
something
fun.
I find that I like about my saxophone in particular is that it's very dynamic, and it does get like thin and spread in the upper range, and that's kind of been the core identity of my sound. And when I go to other horns that are more even bottom to top,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, to me that isn't as
Sure.
interesting to
even
play
sound
on.
really good. Yeah.
Right,
But to a
right.
classical saxophone player, like they hate playing on something like this because they need the tone a little bit more even bottom to top. So it's like there's a time and a place for this, and
Mhm.
there's a different time and place for the Selmer Supreme, and yeah.
It's funny though, I've heard that, I think when I was first hearing about it, it was described to me, maybe through you, from Dave playing it or something, that he felt like it was designed to be more of a classical horn. But I don't know, listening to it, there's definitely no difference in volume to me. I mean, if anything, I think that would cut more. The Supreme would cut more because it's a little brighter.
Yeah, to me, there's a little more resistance, blowing into the horn. And I could see myself, it's comfortable for like a few minutes, but if I really spent some time sitting and just wailing on it, I have a feeling that I'd get some back pressure from it that would make me feel uncomfortable. And I'd have to kind of change the way I play the instrument to get used to it, which is certainly doable. But again, that kind of goes back to like, I just feel so comfortable. What I have been playing on, it would just take me a little while to change how I play to get used to a new saxophone. But it sounds really nice, and like ergonomically, it feels better in my hands. This has always felt like it just feels kind of big, and like maybe you should even like.
Is it similar in weight, do you think, to your horn?
Now my horn is heavy. Like if you just run your fingers up and down, especially those left palm keys on my saxophone,
Sure they have.
really seem quite tall.
It's definitely has a pretty like big grip.
I was gonna say, and like the tone holes or the key height is so big on my horn, and that really allows me to like really push into it. And I feel like I never hit a wall on my instrument.
This is a weird thing to me. It seems like most modern
Maybe I should
saxophones,
switch.
Okay.
the pinky keys, the left-hand pinkies, are always harder to reach than on a Mark 6.
Yeah,
Like a Mark 6, they always seem like they're right there.
especially those older sixes where the table was small. It was like everything was just right there. Yeah, to me, the Supreme ergonomically just feels way more fluid than on my saxophone.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Sure.
And having that low key height just felt really nice.
Yeah, not two totally different worlds though. They're similar-ish.
Yeah, and it depends, I think a lot of people who struggle with ergonomics often have smaller hands, and when you have smaller hands, it starts to make bigger and bigger difference.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave Bertain, another local saxophone player, has always said like, "Well, I don't have very big hands," and he plays an SBA, and SBAs do feel very small. They're small. They feel smaller than the 6.
Yeah.
Just saying something because the 6 feels smaller to any modern horn to me. Anyways.
I don't know if the it's relevant.
Granted,
It's hard to tell.
this one was set up by Randy down at Tenor Madness.
Okay,
So this one is a little bit more opened up than they come standard.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Important to know.
Interesting. My pearls are worn down more, so that's right. It's a little, you're kind of feeling that.
Oh,
right
sure.
there too, so it's a little bit.
30 years of.
Right, yeah. Okay, well, I'll go next since I'm in the
All right.
lighter.
You're in the hot seat.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah, feel free to really just go into playing it if you want.
Well, I don't know. I think my initial impressions are that it's does feel like it's a little bit more focused for sure. Pretty in the low register. I don't know. Do you want to give it a try?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. You feel any difference in the playing, or because to me it sounds like sweeter and cleaner.
I think
than
cleaner
yours.
is cleaner for
More
sure.
even again.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard to say without playing.
Well, should I do mine first or?
Yeah, get warmed up. Feel free to play longer than you think you should. You've only been on this for a year, yeah?
Yeah, a little over a year.
Do you feel like you're really used to it at this point?
Yeah, I would say so. And because I've mostly played sixes, that it's familiar. So even though it's only been a little over a year, I've played on a six most
Yeah.
of my life, or adult life, anyways. Not sure where it'll play in tune.
I felt like
We
I
should
should
check with the tuner.
Yeah, I felt like I'd have to push farther on, I think,
Yeah.
than where I
I'm gonna
was.
have a tuner quick, just
Yeah,
so
that's
I'm
good.
at least within the ballpark.
Yeah.
Could change that. Definitely.
A little flat?
Yeah. Oh, it's similar. Feels
Yeah.
more free blowing than mine.
Yeah. I think clear is a good word for it. It sounds just a lot more clear for both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the uppers here of the Supreme?
Well, I just played an F there, fork F, and it was almost a little too loud and clear for me. Like it was just it
Yeah.
had like that fuzziness to it. It's like pretty startling how much that pops out.
Yeah.
I'd get used to it. On the fork E, doesn't, I don't know, that's a little different for me. You can cut that out. I feel like the palm keys are more contained. But then when I jump to the fork fingerings, they pop out more.
Yeah.
Like when I play D, palm D and E.
And some people like to have that wall to like push into, but I think if you're not really like going hard into your instrument, a lot of people don't even feel like they hit that wall.
I just wanted to play this for a second.
Yeah.
Just to quickly go back. The F is a little
Yeah.
more, slightly more, it's just more even with the rest of the horn.
Yeah. You get so much tone and color off in the upper register on your instrument.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like,
It's crispier. It's like
yeah,
more in focus. It's like HD.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and on the Supreme, like, it stays like open and even all the way up, and for some people, I think, especially when they're thinking about switching from their vintage horns, they're gonna miss some of that color that you get in the upper register.
Mm-hmm.
But for some people, that evenness all the way up is what they're looking
Sure.
for.
Yeah, it would just take getting used to, and I think, you know, every horn is going to react differently to a different setup. So when you get a new horn, often you're going to go through that, maybe a little bit of mouthpiece hut again.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you're playing on the same mouthpiece, you're just going to find a horn that fits with the mouthpiece you've been playing. But
Yeah.
I was wondering, is Selmer going to produce different finishes?
They already are.
They already are. Okay.
Yeah.
Because people coming from a vintage call it superficial, but I love
Yeah.
the look of your horn.
Yeah, it
that
does.
lacquered
It
look.
does. Like the lacquers do make a pretty big difference. Like a gold-plated instrument is gonna feel a little bit deeper and warmer. A silver-plated instrument is gonna feel a little bit zingier. Like
Mhm.
you push into it a little bit more. An unlacquered horn kind of has a little bit more fuzz and grit in the sound, and it blows a little bit easier, but the sound also spreads a little bit. And that's a little bit the trouble in shopping new horns. Is like, I want to try this one, but like, it'd be nice. I want to try the silver one and the gold one,
Mhm.
and any of the other lacquers that are out there too, because it does make a difference.
Well, my point was even more shallow than that, just aesthetics.
Yeah, aesthetics too, and especially for young players coming up, it does make a difference how your horn looks. And at the end of the day, when you're buying a new instrument, if it doesn't get you excited to sit down and play your instrument, I always tell people, like, what is the point of even buying that new instrument if you're not more excited to play it?
Right. But the sound does jump out of that. It's very responsive.
Mhm.
So I can see, you know, doesn't feel like it's fighting you, and I would
Yeah.
be excited to play it again. You know, it's not like something that's super stuffy and difficult to play where I'd be like, yeah, I'm all set. I don't have to play that again.
Yeah. One thing that we have found super interesting, and we kind of discovered it on the alto, and I don't see a lot of people, I see a lot of people talking about this neck tenon receiver and how it moves, and there's some notches taken out. And basically what Selmer did, and this was not, an original idea. They used to do this on some vintage horns, but basically with the 3 notches taken out here, when you clamp down on the screw, it comes evenly from all sides. But what's interesting is if you line up the screw hole with one of those notches, we find that it the horn plays a little bit different. So maybe Clay, we can use you as our guinea pig. And I'm gonna start with the screw hole unlined up with one of those notches. Let you play a little bit in it, and really like. We find like when you're laid into it is when you're gonna feel the biggest. Yeah. And voila.
So what was it when I played it before? Was that,
It was unlined up for all of us. And then if you line it up,
so this is
What
how
are
it
you
was
lining up
before?
exactly?
I'm lining up, there's these notches.
Yeah. You're lining it up with a notch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it does make a difference. And I don't see a lot of people
The notch-
talking about
the notch
that.
separate? Yeah, no, it feels different.
That is different.
And then maybe switch it back.
I like that better.
And it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It does give you a different kind of a feel a little bit.
Yeah.
It's similar to me if we switch the neck screw out. It has a different kind of a
the mass almost.
Yeah, the feeling of where the resonance is coming from, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if it sounds anything, but kind of change it back.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Because I think I did prefer the other one. It's a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's different for everybody.
So when it was like this second adjustment, it kind of felt more similar to the way my horn blows, I guess, for whatever reason.
To a lot of people, when they line up that screw hole with the notch, to a lot of people, it's like a little less resistance. The sound goes a little bit more, and it's not quite as
So that's like it is now.
compact. So now this is going to feel a little bit more open.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're getting a little bit more color in that upper range too.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really
Is that
easy-
interesting?
Very easy to play. Yeah, it is different.
Yeah, and it's the one thing I don't see people talking about.
I want to do the same thing as play my horn.
The sound was in the other position. The sound was breaking up a little bit in certain notes,
Yeah,
distorting. But that position currently is keeping it together more.
So one of the things I noticed going back and forth between the two is, it just feels a little bit more, the pinky keys feels a little bit more there.
Yeah.
You're more aware of it, as where on my horn it feels more, a little closer to the body.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more like you're driving a smaller, faster car in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
That feels a little bit more like, okay, it's, I don't know. It's interesting. It is a more open sound, maybe, I guess.
yeah,
Everything feels closer to me, like where the core of the sound is and where the keys are and everything. Kind of feels like it's more like right here is where that kind of feels like maybe it's a little bit farther out from me.
yeah,
That makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah,
I think it's just a tonal preference. I think for all of us, the tones on our saxophones are like crunchier.
Yeah.
There's like more like grit in there, and that's smoother,
yeah.
which I can see people really liking.
Yeah, and especially I think there's a big market of players that we haven't reached today, and that's the classical players out there. And I think, especially with the alto saxophone, the alto supreme, in the classical world, that went over so well. And even in the jazz world, like there's a good number of jazz players playing on the alto supreme, and there's not as many classical tenor saxophone players out there in the world. But I do think that, if we had someone in here playing classically, I think like even more so, players like that would love something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certainly a lot of great jazz players out there playing on these right now.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
That's most of the marketing I've seen for these has been
Yeah,
jazz players playing it.
yeah, especially like Bradford Marcellus being like their
Right.
poster child for this instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can kind of move into like kind of just like wrapping up our ideas and everything. Kind of the last thing I want to talk about, and this is, I think, for a lot of people, the shock is how much these instruments cost. And coming in at like, they're like a little north of 10,500. And ones that are set up by Randy are going to be a little bit more than that as it is.
How about the other plating? Does that make a difference?
Yeah, the other plating is like the silver and gold plates are a little bit more expensive as it is. But it's interesting, especially in this day and age when you're shopping vintage saxophones, which seems to be what a lot of people are comparing this instrument to, is vintage saxophones. There's a lot of golden era Mark Sixes that you can pay, $7,000-8,000 for one, and then have to put some money in, fix it up. Or there's like the golden era ones that are closet instruments that people are paying $10,000 to $20,000 sometimes for. 10,500 compared to that is like, we get a horn that's way more even bottom to top, undeniably more in tune, it's built better, it's brand new. At that point, for a lot of people, like 10,500, in that comparison is like, wow, this is a great choice.
Is there a plan to limit how many are produced, or are they just going to keep making them? Is it?
At this point, they're just going to keep making them.
Because that would have an effect on the value. On one hand, if you were only going to make a limited number, I can see the value going potentially up over time. But if they're going to continue to produce them, there's kind of a security in knowing, well, if something happened to my horn, even though I paid 10.5 for it, as long as I have it insured, you can get almost the same exact horn again.
Yeah. Another interesting point is you look at other brands and their top of the line saxophones. For Yamaha, the Atelier is at like $7,500 or $8,000. The new Eastman 52nd Street is also around that price point.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. And then you look at some of the Yanagisawas, those start reaching up into this price point. So it's not like this horn is in a league of its own. Like, there are other horns that approach this price level, and in my opinion, like, very much keep up with how well those other instruments play, or even play even better.
How much are Series 3s? Those are still being made, right?
I don't know off the top of my head
Okay.
how much they are.
Yeah. I'm just curious if maybe that's part of the reason why they're being compared to the vintage Selmers more than modern horns, because they're almost kind of in that similar price point.
Yeah.
That you could pay $10,000 for Mark 6 or SBA, maybe $10,000 for this.
Yeah.
I've never purchased a new instrument. I think all of my saxophones and my other instruments have all been purchased new. So for me, it's comparing if I were to get used to a new Supreme versus a new Yamaha, Yanagisawa. I think for what my usage, I don't know if I would see the value in that price point on a new horn, just for my own sake. But again, if I was someone that was teaching college and doing both classical and jazz or something, then I could see the value is there. I would have as much of an adjustment period on any new horn, this versus something that was, a third as much or something. So it's hard. It's a little hard for me to kind of to picture that for myself, unfortunately. As much as I think it's it is probably in line somewhat with going rates, but
I do see, especially working here in the shop, a lot of the Alto Supremes that we've seen going out are either there's a lot of high schoolers going into college and they're going to be studying classical music, and they might also be playing jazz, and it's going to be doing both of those for them. But it's some younger people, or like you said, college professors who can swing paying the $10,500 for this, or the altos are like $7,200. We see a lot of those classical players willing to pay for that, and that I actually hear a lot of good feedback that like it is better than this horn that I have been playing on, and it plays more evenly, and it's more in tune, and the altissimo feels easier to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can see for a parent who's looking to upgrade their kid's horn, and they're looking at all these vintage horns, and not every vintage Selmer is great. There's a wide range of how it's going to play out. It's been treated over decades, and this you kind of know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and
minus the setup.
And at a young age, like I feel like I'm 29 now, and I feel like I figured out my sound on tenor saxophone maybe by the time I was 25 or 26. And I don't know when you feel like you figured out your tone on your saxophone.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, but like you feel pretty comfortable, like you know how you sound. Like getting a kid, you know, who's still in high school or even in college, like that's a young age to spend a lot of money on an instrument that you're not quite fully knowing how you sound or what the core identity of your sound is. A horn like this, you know, is like a really nice blank slate that someone can grow into.
I would like to fast forward 20 years after these have been played for 20 years.
Yeah, we'll come back, we'll make a video.
What does it play like? What does it feel like now after it's been played?
Yeah. And horns definitely do break in quite a bit. Like I always
plays great.
Yeah.
Broken in for a few years.
Yeah, broken in and it's taken a couple falls and then back
Good
together.
Mine's been stepped down, so.
Yeah, you know, but that is something to consider. It'll be interesting to see what these horns feel and sound like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Because like this metal, it will loosen up a little bit over time and horns become a little bit more free blowing the longer you play them. So.
Yeah, I remember talking to a Tenor Madness employee, and they were saying with regular playing, they felt like the horn suddenly opens up quite a bit around that 7 to 9 month mark.
Yeah.
Where, it'll feel great in the beginning, that's why you bought it, but, you know, there'll be some added openness to it, flexibility after a while.
And I know there are some manufacturers across like all instrument groups that they do like a cryo treatment on their instrument where they like really deep freeze it, thaw it, deep freeze, thaw it, and then it's like breaking in the instrument before, you know, you're buying it, which is kind of nice. And it does make a big difference. They're not doing that to the Selmers, but just to note that like your instrument will break in a little bit over the first 5 to 10 years.
I think a lot of it is the spring tension too. You know, when the springs loosen up and kind of relax a little bit, that can make a big difference. I mean, I noticed that even with adjustments, you know, sometimes you get your horn worked on and get it back, and it's something that feels different. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of at the end of the day, if we're really comparing vintage saxophones to the new Supreme, I think for a lot of people. Tonality is one of the biggest differences. And the color and tone you get out of vintage instruments is different than the color and the tone that you're going to get out of modern instruments. And they both have their ups and downs. And at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to what do you prefer as a player? What feels better? What sounds more like you envision your sound like coming out of the instrument? And the only way to really figure that out is to have a chance to sit down with, a couple of vintage instruments and then sit down with a couple of new instruments and really just play back and forth. So.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to do almost follow-up video with new instruments, with this being in there. But play, if you had the Yamaha, was it Atelier?
Yeah. That
model, or even a custom Z, maybe even a Selmer Series 3, newer.
Some of the high-end Yamaha's. Yeah. Well, do you guys have any last remarks?
Does anyone have $10,000 they could loan?
Yeah, I've got 2 kidneys.
It's actually closer to 11 with tax, but.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming out and hanging out. I hope that you guys out there watching this had fun watching and could hear the differences between, our horns and the new one. If you're really interested to try it, you're always welcome to come out to the store and try stuff out. We do at-home trials and stuff too. We mail stuff all around the world for you to try. So if you're really curious, just let us know.
Should they make an appointment if they were to come in?
Yeah. You make an appointment. Probably none of this is probably going to be video.
Just like when you're going to schedule your teeth cleaning with your dentist.
Yeah, make an appointment.
Yeah.
Just wander.
Yeah.
Zach's gone by
That's what I
8
did.
o'clock. No, 5 o'clock. So if you come at 5:01, you have free reign to the
Yeah.
Sax shop.
Well, thanks for sticking around and watching the video. If you have any thoughts, please leave them down in the comments and we'll make sure to get back to you guys. Thank you, Clay and Joe, for joining us today, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah. Was that good? Did we do it?
That was
You're a
great.
pro, yeah.